In the choking mist that rises from cratered fields and trenches scarred deeper than the Earth's own wounds, war does not merely rage, it festers. For 800 years, the Trench Crusade has consumed faith and flesh, reason and hope, leaving behind only haunted prayers and rusted weapons as monuments to human desperation. It is a war without end, fought in the shadow of fallen Jerusalem, where heaven and hell collide, and humanity's greatest weapon is neither sword nor rifle, but alchemy, a terrible, transcendent art born of both divine grace and infernal depravity. Alchemy in this war is not the fanciful pursuit of charlatans, nor the innocent quest for immortality. It is salvation and damnation distilled. It is the twisting of creation's very essence to serve masters too cruel or too desperate to count the cost. For each faction, alchemy is their edge, their hope, their sin. It is the science of survival, the art of defiance against an enemy that is not just mortal, but metaphysical. To wield alchemy is to walk a knife's edge, poised between madness and enlightenment, salvation and ruin. It began with the first heresy, deep beneath Jerusalem's most sacred temples. There, the Templars, once noble warriors, uncovered secrets that were never meant for mortal hands. In their greed, they struck bargains with powers ancient and unholy, unraveling the fabric of reality itself. The gate of hell opened, and from that moment, alchemy was no longer about gold or eternal youth. It became a tool of war, a means to channel energies that could turn devout men into living weapons and transform metal into armaments capable of piercing even the armor of angels. Yet the faithful, in their despair and resolve, did not abandon the forbidden art. Instead, they sought divine guidance, forging alliances with saints and angels, delving deep into sacred texts to reclaim alchemy from the shadows. In hidden monasteries and fortified laboratories, monks and mystics purified metals with holy prayers, crafting armor that gleamed with the light of heaven and weapons infused with blessings strong enough to shatter demons born of the pit. Thus, alchemy became holy once more, but at a terrible price. For every artifact bore the risk of corruption, and every victory was tainted by the whispers of darker powers, always lurking, always tempting. But alchemy's darkness did not rest solely with the faithful and the heretics. In the far reaches of the Levant stood the great Iron Wall, where the Iron Sultanate turned alchemy into mastery over life itself. The Jabarian alchemists, scholars of the House of Wisdom, unlocked the secrets of Takwin, creating living beings from clay, metal, and forbidden knowledge. Their creations were magnificent and terrifying, beasts born not of nature, but of human ambition and divine secrets. Yet these marvels often suffered in perpetual agony, their existence a testament to alchemy's terrible duality, the power to create and to curse in equal measure. Beyond the trenches, the lost, the mad, and the broken wandered, driven by visions and prophecies born on alchemical fumes. They carried weapons that corroded their souls, inhaled vapors that both strengthened and destroyed their minds, and wore armor that devoured their flesh. Each alchemist, each soldier, each martyr was changed irrevocably by the very art that promised them victory, left scarred or enlightened, emboldened or shattered. Thus, alchemy was not just a weapon of war, it was war itself. It reshaped bodies and minds, twisted landscapes, and consumed entire generations in its relentless pursuit. Every faction believed themselves its master, yet each was, in truth, its slave. The lines between good and evil, sacred and profane, blurred under its influence, leaving only an endless struggle, where victory was fleeting and defeat was eternal. To understand this war, one must look deeper, beyond strategy and tactics, beyond the screams of the dying, into the heart of alchemy itself. For this is not simply the story of how wars are fought, but why they are fought, and what it truly means to wield the power of gods and devils in the mud and blood of the Trench Crusade. The true horror of this war lies not just in its battles, but in the relentless, inescapable truth that alchemy binds them all, heretic, faithful, and unbeliever alike, in an unending cycle of transformation and suffering. Alchemy, in the end, is neither good nor evil. It is inevitability. It is fate, forged in fire and blood, forever dictating the course of a war that cannot be won, only endured. Yet amidst this unceasing devastation, where alchemy's sinister whispers permeate every battlefield, the faithful stand resolute, driven by an unshakable belief, not merely in the divine, but in its potential to redeem even the darkest arts. To them, alchemy is more than a weapon. It is a sacred rite, a desperate prayer shaped from metal and flame, from flesh and faith. In their hands, the forbidden becomes holy, transformed by rituals steeped in sacrifice and sanctity. But holiness here is not pure. Rather, it is bloodied, tarnished, and tempered in the crucible of eternal war. In dimly lit chapels and hidden monasteries, faithful alchemists labor endlessly. Candles flicker and sputter as whispered prayers merge with the rhythmic pounding of hammers, forging armaments inscribed with sacred glyphs, purified in fonts of holy water mingled with blood. The followers of Saint Eligius, patron of metalworkers, chant verses as they alloy steel with divine light, creating armor that glistens not with mere metal, but with celestial protection. Yet these miracles bear a heavy cost, as each blessing draws from the very essence of the devout alchemists, aging them beyond their years, leaving them hollowed and frail, their faith the only thing sustaining them through their endless toil. Their works defy the logic of ordinary warcraft. There are bullets sanctified to pierce not just flesh, but souls, forged from remnants of saints' relics and melted church bells, each shot a prayer for deliverance. There are trench clubs and polearms bearing sacred inscriptions that scorch unholy flesh, blazing briefly with divine fire upon striking the enemy, yet burning their wielders with spiritual fervor, driving them to ecstasy and madness in equal measure. Alchemy to the faithful is the materialization of belief itself, transmuting mortal desperation into divine might. Yet the Church knows that mere metal and prayer are insufficient against the horrors they face. Thus arose the Paladin program, a union of forbidden science and sanctified devotion. Within secret chambers beneath Castel Sant'Angelo, monks of the Mentalist order performed rites so sacred and so terrible that none outside their order dare speak of them. They bred communicants from the blood of the Redeemer, creating warriors whose flesh was alchemically enhanced, their minds consecrated, their bodies grown beyond mortal limits. Each paladin was a living testament to the Church's willingness to walk the edge of damnation, embodying both human perfection and divine grace, able to stride even into hell's infernal gates without faltering. But the price of such perfection was immense, measured in the slow corrosion of souls and the unspeakable agony endured beneath their holy armor, forged from sacred metals no longer found in this desecrated world. Even in the front lines, among soldiers who never heard the word alchemy, its presence was felt. Martyrdom pills, crafted by monk alchemists, were swallowed by trench pilgrims in the shadow of looming death. These pills, suffused with holy oils, incense, and potent chemical compounds, granted brief transcendence from pain and fear. But as their effects faded, so did the soldiers' humanity, leaving them writhing in withdrawal, praying for another chance to charge the enemy, to feel holy fire in their veins once more, even if it consumed their bodies and minds in the process. Some faithful warriors carried weapons imbued with the voice of God, alchemically crafted devices attuned to divine frequencies, granting their wielders brief, terrifying clarity, allowing them to foresee attacks moments before they came. Yet the human mind was not meant for such divine communion, and these chosen few lived in constant torment, their minds fractured by the relentless echo of eternity. This was divine alchemy's most harrowing truth. The faithful became sacrifices, willingly offered upon altars of their own making. They sought salvation through transmutation, believing that through pain, through sacrifice, through the melding of flesh and faith, they might one day cleanse this world of its hellish corruption. Yet with each sacred rite, the line between holiness and heresy blurred further. Some emerged as living saints, their wounds bearing holy stigmata, their presence inspiring awe and dread in equal measure. Others fell into madness, their devotion twisted into something dark, leaving behind only hollow shells of zeal, dangerous to friend and foe alike. Alchemy was thus revealed not only as a weapon, but as a mirror reflecting the souls of its wielders. In their unending war, the faithful discovered that the same divine transmutation which could elevate could also corrupt. Yet they persisted, for they saw no alternative but to fight darkness with holy darkness, to turn the very weapons of hell against their creators. Theirs was a faith tested by fire, an alchemy tempered in sacrifice, a salvation bought at a price too steep for most to bear. Yet still, they marched on, whispering prayers, wielding weapons sanctified by blood, their souls forever transmuted by the terrible grace of the divine. Yet, as the faithful whispered prayers over sanctified steel, across the shattered lands stood their shadowed counterparts, the heretics, who knelt not to the heavens, but to the infernal flames that once consumed Jerusalem. To them, alchemy was not a divine right, but an embrace of damnation, a willing descent into darkness where power came swiftly, yet bore the dreadful cost of eternal torment. In their blood-stained temples and inverted pyramids of black stone, the heretics perfected an alchemy as grotesque as it was awe-inspiring, harnessing the darkest secrets of Tartarus itself to wage unholy war. From the moment the Knights Templar first unearthed that accursed artifact beneath the Temple Mount, their souls were forever lost. In that dreadful instant, divine light dimmed, and infernal alchemy was born. With every incantation, with every blasphemous rite, they forged new bonds with powers too horrific for mortal comprehension. Alchemy became their sacrament, a communion with devils who promised supremacy in exchange for human souls. To wield it was to be transformed, body and mind, into something less than human and more akin to the very demons they invoked. Deep within subterranean forges, shielded from prying eyes by walls pulsating with eldritch energy, heretic alchemists worked tirelessly. The air reeked of brimstone and burnt flesh as infernal metals were drawn from crucibles fed by the fires of the lake of eternal flame. These metals were unlike any known to mortal men, materials that screamed when struck, that writhed in torment as they cooled, infused with the essence of damned souls. To touch such armaments was agony, and yet the heretics wielded them eagerly, their flesh searing, their spirits consumed by the very weapons they held. To them, this was not sacrifice but ascension, a sacred agony that proved their worthiness to their infernal masters. Their blades, forged of hell steel, glowed with unholy fire, eternally aflame, able to cut through armor and bone as easily as a prayer rends the silence. Yet every strike corrupted its wielder further, branding their soul with marks that festered with infernal corruption. Their armor, too, was a masterpiece of suffering, fashioned from the blackened remains of captured angels and martyrs, infused with curses so potent that simply donning it caused their flesh to rot and their sanity to fracture. But such was the heretics' devotion that they embraced this torment, seeing each blistering wound and festering sore as a blessing bestowed by the archdevils they revered. Most horrific were their living bullets, ammunition born from unholy alchemy, crafted from hell-spawned insects, larvae, and sentient toxins. When fired, these abominations sought not merely to kill, but to infect, burrowing into flesh, corrupting victims into metastatic horrors, grotesque servants eternally bound to the will of their infernal lords. Those struck by such bullets did not die cleanly. They screamed for days, bodies warping, minds shattering, until they rose once more as vessels of the Black Grail, forever bound to spread the plague of Beelzebub. And yet, even this was not their darkest deed. In hidden laboratories beneath infernal shrines, the heretics created their most vile weapons, artillery witches, twisted amalgams of flesh and machine, forged through alchemical rites so depraved that even seasoned alchemists recoiled in horror. These wretched creatures, bound and driven mad by hellish machinery grafted into their bodies, unleashed torrents of demonic fire and brimstone, their very presence turning battlefields into searing infernos. Every moment of their cursed existence was pain beyond reckoning, their screams harmonizing with the cacophony of war, a grim symphony composed by devils and performed by those too broken to resist. Yet among the heretics stood the anointed, revered warriors who had braved the very shores of Hell's fiery lake. Their charred bodies were living monuments to infernal alchemy's most profound transmutation, the fusion of human soul with hellfire itself. Cloaked in Gehenna's heavy armor, eyes ablaze with eternal flames, they bore weapons that no mere mortal could lift, great axes and war hammers infused with Tartarian iron. Their very existence was an affront to creation, for they had traded their humanity willingly, emerging forever scarred, forever burning, but unstoppable in their dark crusade. To witness heretic alchemy was to behold the grotesque reflection of the faithful's desperate hope. It was the perversion of divine transmutation, proof that the same art that sanctified could also desecrate. Yet, for all their blasphemy, the heretics understood a grim truth. In a war where heaven itself was silent, the infernal might offer what the divine would not: power unburdened by mercy, strength untainted by compassion. They had chosen damnation, knowing it led only to ruin, but believing that even ruin was preferable to defeat. And so, the heretics marched, their infernal alchemy unleashed upon the world. With every step, they transformed earth to ash, faith to fear, and hope to despair. Their war was not just against the faithful, but against existence itself, and they would wield the forbidden until either victory or oblivion claimed them. Yet beyond the trenches scarred by divine fury and infernal blasphemy, stood the great iron wall, an unyielding bulwark beneath which alchemy was neither holy nor heretical, but transcendent. Here, the Iron Sultanate wielded an art that defied both heaven and hell, claiming mastery over life itself. In golden gardens beneath Damascus, through shadowed corridors of the House of Wisdom, alchemy became a path to understanding, dangerous, enigmatic, yet bound by a logic that seemed almost merciful amid the madness of endless war. To the Sultanate, alchemy was neither a rite nor a curse. It was enlightenment and desperation intertwined, the last hope of a civilization trapped between the infernal and the divine. Central to the Sultanate's alchemical mastery was the sacred art of takwin, the creation of life from base matter, a craft whispered to have been bestowed by the legendary sage Jabir himself. This was alchemy at its most profound, and its most terrifying. In the laboratories beneath the House of Wisdom, amidst the scent of exotic incense and chemicals that blurred the lines between science and sorcery, alchemists pored over ancient texts, translating forbidden scriptures and weaving elements together with intricate precision. Their goal was not merely to forge weapons or armor, but to create beings, living miracles born from clay, metal, blood, and the whispered incantations of generations past. These creations were magnificent, yet profoundly tragic. Among them were the lions of Jabir, monstrous and majestic beasts named after the fierce predators of the desert plains. Each lion was unique, a masterpiece of alchemical artistry and tragic flaws. Some bore leonine bodies shimmering with scales of meteoric iron. Others had wings crafted from delicate alloys that allowed them to glide over battlefields, their roars echoing with the sorrow of artificial souls. Yet their lives were often short and painful, their bodies racked by the instability inherent in their unnatural birth. Many suffered perpetual agony, their every moment a cruel testament to alchemy's ambition and its cost. The most tragic were those given human-like minds, burdened by the unbearable weight of existential dread, forever conscious of their artificial origins, longing for a freedom their creators could never grant. Yet the alchemists persisted, driven by necessity and the relentless pressure of war. Their creations bolstered the Sultanate's armies, prowling beyond the iron wall, tearing through enemy lines with a ferocity born of suffering. The Sultan himself kept a hunting pack of these alchemical beasts, their presence both a symbol of his power and a grim reminder of the price his people were willing to pay for survival. But the lions were merely one manifestation of Takwin's dreadful artistry. Deeper within the House of Wisdom, alchemists sought to perfect the creation of homunculi, humanoid servants grown within celestial spheres, beings of unparalleled dexterity and intellect, designed to aid their masters in tasks beyond mortal ability. Yet the birth of each homunculus was fraught with peril. The slightest miscalculation could transform a would-be servant into a vengeful monstrosity. Many alchemists met their end screaming as their own creations consumed them from within, turning masters into vessels of vengeance. Even successful homunculi were haunted beings, eternally bound to their creators, existing solely to serve, yet yearning silently for a purpose of their own. They moved through laboratories with ethereal grace, assisting in the crafting of intricate devices and deadly alchemical weapons, bombs filled with elemental fury, blades coated in poisons crafted from celestial metals. Yet behind their vacant eyes lingered an unspoken sorrow, a silent reproach to their creators, who had dared to play God, but could never grant them true life or freedom. The alchemists themselves were not immune to their craft's dark allure. Initiates faced trials that tested their very souls, forced to open their third eye, a painful and dangerous ritual granting them visions of creation's hidden fabric. Those who survived emerged forever changed, able to perceive elemental truths and manipulate matter with unnerving precision. But failure was merciless. Some were driven mad, their minds unraveling as the weight of cosmic revelation crushed their sanity, leaving them gibbering husks imprisoned within their own minds. Yet the Sultanate's alchemy was not merely tragedy, it was also salvation. On the iron wall's battlements stood the brazen bulls, towering alchemical constructs of bronze and iron, living siege weapons capable of raining fiery destruction upon advancing foes. Each bull was a testament to Tarquin's potential, merging raw elemental power with the resilience of life itself, their booming cannons echoing across the fields, a stark reminder of the alchemists' desperate triumphs. In the Sultanate's hands, alchemy revealed its most profound paradox. It was creation and suffering, enlightenment and madness, hope and despair intertwined. For them, it was a tool not to be worshipped nor feared, but wielded with humility and caution. Yet even they could not escape alchemy's grim truth, that to reshape creation was to be forever changed by it, bound to cycles of pain, sacrifice, and fleeting moments of terrible beauty. Their art was a delicate balance, precarious and profound, reflecting humanity's deepest yearning and darkest fears, a secret known to all who studied within the House of Wisdom. Alchemy's greatest power lay not in what it created, but in what it revealed. The fragile line between mastery and madness, between creator and creation, forever blurred in the crucible of endless war. Alchemy, within the nightmare that is the Trench Crusade, is more than just science or sorcery. It is a mirror held up to the soul of humanity, revealing both the noblest aspirations and the darkest madness. It is here, in the crumbling universities and forgotten libraries, in hidden sanctuaries and shadowed laboratories, that alchemy shows its true face, not as mere transmutation of metal, nor as an instrument of war, but as a desperate, profound attempt to make sense of a world spiraling inexorably toward annihilation. In the hallowed halls of the House of Wisdom, scholars and philosophers pondered ancient texts, engaging in endless debate about alchemy's true purpose. To some, it was the purest form of enlightenment, a pursuit of divine understanding, seeking the underlying order of creation itself. They saw alchemy not as magic, but as metaphysics, a path toward unity with the cosmos, transcending the mortal boundaries of flesh and matter. Yet even these philosophers, lost in contemplation, could not escape the bitter truth, that their purest intentions were corrupted the moment their theories touched reality. Their elegant equations and celestial diagrams birthed war machines and suffering creatures. Their abstract truths became tangible horrors. For every philosopher who sought enlightenment, there was another driven mad by revelation. Deep beneath cathedrals and fortresses, monks and mystics labored in isolation, surrounded by bubbling vials, arcane symbols, and half-mad apprentices chanting fractured prayers. Their work was fueled not by hope, but by dread, a gnawing fear that they were not unlocking the secrets of creation, but rather peering into the abyss itself. These were the madmen, driven by visions that no human mind could bear. They spoke to angels and demons alike, their minds forever fractured, their work a frantic attempt to piece together a universe that made sense only in dreams. or nightmares. This duality between philosopher and madman was the heart of alchemy's horror. Within each alchemist lay both, struggling eternally for dominance. Each discovery was both triumph and tragedy, each creation a testament to humanity's greatness and its capacity for ruin. And so they labored on, their minds torn apart by contradictions, forever questioning whether their work brought salvation or accelerated the descent into chaos. Yet there were darker truths still, known only to those who dared delve deepest. These were the outcasts, those who had glimpsed the real secret of alchemy, that its power lay not in transmuting matter, but in transmuting souls. In hidden places, alchemists sought not just to create life, but to perfect it, to ascend beyond humanity itself. But their attempts invariably ended in horror, as their creations, crafted from forbidden recipes and heretical texts, turned monstrous, their twisted bodies and tormented minds screaming silently of alchemy's ultimate futility. Among them stood the Jabberian alchemists of the Sultanate, the Mendelist monks of the Church, and the damned heretics of Tartarus. Each believed themselves enlightened, each thought they wielded truth, yet all were in the end philosophers and madmen both, driven by a hunger to master the unmasterable. Their greatest successes were always their greatest failures, for in their pursuit of perfection, they invariably birthed suffering, homunculi trapped in endless torment, warriors whose minds unraveled under the weight of divine or infernal knowledge, and weapons that corroded the souls of their wielders. Alchemy thus revealed itself as the ultimate reflection of humanity's condition in this endless war. It was a philosophy born from despair, a madness born from understanding. It was an art that consumed those who wielded it, burning away their sanity, leaving behind either broken philosophers or enlightened madmen, often both at once. The duality was inescapable, the contradictions inherent, for to grasp at creation's secrets was to realize that those secrets were never meant to be understood by mortal minds. Perhaps that was alchemy's greatest revelation, that some knowledge is too vast, too terrible for humanity to bear. That to look upon the universe's true face is to be driven mad by its beauty and horror, forever torn between enlightenment and despair. And yet, despite this, they persisted. For in their madness lay hope, however faint, that one day they might unlock the final secret, the great work completed, not in gold or power, but in understanding, in acceptance of a universe forever beyond their grasp. But until then, alchemy would remain a grim dance between philosophers and madmen, each step bringing them closer not to truth, but to the revelation of their own limitations, their own profound fragility. And so they worked on, driven by visions, haunted by dreams, forever chasing the elusive balance between creation and destruction, sanity and madness, salvation and damnation. In the trenches, philosophers and madmen died alike, their alchemy returning to the mud and blood from which it sprang, a grim testament to humanity's eternal struggle with itself, forever seeking understanding, forever trapped between enlightenment and madness. Yet alchemy's most profound horror lay not in its twisting of metal and flesh, nor in the madness it birthed within the minds of those who practiced it, but in the silent toll it exacted from those who wielded its power, the soldiers, the pilgrims, the desperate souls clinging to the faint hope that alchemy could save them from oblivion. It was they who bore alchemy's true cost, their bodies and minds forever scarred, their humanity slowly corroded by the very miracles they sought to harness. To understand alchemy's true nature was to witness the transformation it inflicted upon ordinary men and women, turning them into martyrs and monsters alike. In trenches drowned in mud and blood, alchemy seeped into every pore, every breath, every thought. Soldiers clutched weapons whose very touch corroded their sanity, fired bullets sanctified or damned, inhaled chemical fumes that burned their lungs and addled their minds. The holy smoke, consumed by trench chaplains, offered brief respite from terror, yet each dose eroded their nerves, leaving behind shaking, hollow-eyed ghosts, addicted not to relief, but to oblivion itself. The great hospice of New Antioch overflowed with such broken souls. Men who once spoke prayers now muttered incoherent pleas, their minds irreparably shattered, their bodies withered husks. Yet still, the soldiers consumed their pills and breathed their fumes, knowing well that each dose brought them closer to ruin. They did so not from ignorance, but from desperation, the grim knowledge that in war, survival was its own torment. Martyrdom pills granted temporary invincibility against pain, fear, and exhaustion. But as their effects wore off, soldiers felt their humanity stripped away, leaving only an insatiable craving for more. They no longer feared death, they feared the return to unbearable reality, begging their priests and alchemists for another dose, willing to sacrifice sanity for just one more moment of blessed numbness. Even the armor and weapons sanctified by divine alchemy came at a cruel cost. Soldiers who wore icon-encrusted breastplates felt the weight of holy purpose pressing upon them, a burden no human soul could bear without fracturing. Each strike against unholy foes burned their flesh with radiant agony, yet they endured, driven by faith or madness, their bodies becoming living sacrifices upon altars of endless war. Their weapons, inscribed with holy or infernal runes, inflicted wounds upon their wielders as surely as their enemies. Their souls eroded with each swing, leaving behind shells who remembered faith only in nightmares. For the heretics, the cost was even more dreadful. They embraced torment willingly, seeking infernal communion through self-inflicted agony. Their hell-forged armor blistered their skin, their cursed blades whispered constantly in their minds, sowing paranoia and rage. Yet, perversely, they welcomed this torment, seeing each blister, each festering wound, as proof of devotion to their diabolical masters. Their minds twisted with each use of infernal alchemy, their humanity reduced to smouldering embers, their souls forever bound in chains of their own making. Even victory offered no relief, only deeper descent into infernal madness, each act of violence binding them tighter to their unholy patrons, sealing their damnation with every desperate, hateful swing. The Sultanate, for all its enlightenment, fared little better. Their creations, the Jabarian beasts and homunculi, bore the silent torment of unnatural life. Their alchemists aged prematurely, bodies twisted by exposure to elements never meant for human hands. Some lost limbs, their flesh consumed by volatile compounds. Others went blind, their vision stolen by flashes of cosmic revelation. Yet the greatest cost was borne by the homunculi themselves, beings crafted with painstaking care, yet doomed to live as slaves to masters who saw them only as tools. Their existence was a perpetual torment, each movement an act of forced obedience, their dreams filled with visions of freedom they could never attain. To look into their eyes was to see alchemy's true cruelty. Life granted, but never truly lived, souls created only to suffer. Alchemy, in the end, revealed itself as a force indifferent to the humanity it claimed to serve. It demanded sacrifice without end, consuming bodies, minds, and souls alike. Its greatest tragedy was not its destructive power, nor its horrific creations, but its betrayal of hope. Soldiers, pilgrims, and alchemists alike believed that through alchemy they might forge salvation, only to discover that it exacted a price no mortal could afford to pay. Yet still they persisted, driven by desperation, faith, or madness. Each dose, each weapon, each creature created was both triumph and tragedy, proof of humanity's boundless resilience and its inevitable doom. Alchemy, for all its miracles, could not alter the fundamental truth of war, that it consumed everything it touched, leaving behind only scars, broken bodies, and shattered minds as grim monuments to human ambition and folly. And so, in the trenches of the Eternal Crusade, the true cost of alchemy was counted not in metals or magic, but in the lost humanity of those who wielded it. It was a price paid willingly, yet bitterly, an eternal reminder that in the pursuit of power, humanity forever risked losing itself, transformed by the very arts it thought would save it. Yet within the wreckage and ruin left by alchemy's relentless toll, there lingered a haunting question, one whispered by philosophers, murmured by madmen, and cried out by broken soldiers in their darkest moments. What was alchemy's true purpose, its great work? Was it merely the transmutation of base metals into gold, the creation of life from clay, or was it something infinitely more profound, a quest for perfection, for mastery over the cosmos itself? For every faction trapped in the endless cycle of war, the great work echoed as both aspiration and curse, a dream of salvation that had driven humanity to the brink of its own destruction. Alchemy, from its ancient origins, had always promised transcendence, an ascent beyond the limitations of flesh and matter, a glimpse into the divine machinery that governed existence. Yet the great work was forever elusive, a mirage shimmering just beyond reach, compelling generation after generation to sacrifice all in pursuit of a goal that seemed perpetually just out of reach. In the trenches, in hidden sanctuaries, in forgotten laboratories, alchemists spoke of it with reverence and dread, knowing that to achieve it was to grasp the power of gods and devils, to reshape creation itself. But what no one spoke of openly was the dreadful irony that the closer they came to achieving it, the deeper they sank into despair, for they realized the great work's final truth was neither salvation nor perfection, but the relentless and terrifying truth of impermanence. The faithful, seeking purity through alchemy, believed the great work was the creation of divine instruments, perfect weapons and armor sanctified to end the war once and for all. Yet every artifact they crafted, each miracle they performed, echoed with the bitter truth that divine alchemy could only perpetuate the cycle of violence, never break it. Their greatest creations, paladins, communicants, holy armaments, were magnificent but flawed, their perfection forever marred by the human hands that forged them. Thus, the faithful's great work became an endless ritual of sacrifice, an offering of their humanity on altars of war, hoping against hope that their suffering would purify a world already beyond redemption. For the Heretics, the great work took a darker form, an aspiration not toward perfection, but toward the unmaking of creation itself. Their alchemy, infused with infernal power, sought not harmony, but chaos, believing that true freedom lay only in the annihilation of the divine order. Their twisted philosophers spoke of a world remade in hellfire, a paradise born from ashes where suffering was embraced, not escaped. Yet even their great work was inherently flawed, for the infernal gifts they received came always with chains of torment, and every act of destruction they unleashed upon their enemies was mirrored within their own souls. Thus, their great work became a spiral into oblivion, where the pursuit of ultimate freedom only bound them tighter to the devils they worshipped, forever trapped in cycles of destruction they themselves had wrought. In the Sultanate, the great work was perhaps most complex, a fusion of enlightenment and hubris. Alchemists of the House of Wisdom saw their craft as a bridge between the mortal and divine, an attempt to perfect humanity by merging it with the cosmos itself. Their creations, homunculi, Jabarian beasts, and the miraculous metals of their armor, were testaments to human ingenuity, yet also profound failures. Each creature crafted through Takwin was magnificent, but suffered endlessly, their very existence a paradox of creation and cruelty. Thus, the Sultanate's great work became a lesson in humility, a painful acknowledgement that some boundaries were not meant to be crossed, that in their pursuit of perfection, they had created not salvation, but profound and unending suffering. Alchemy's ultimate irony, then, was this: that its practitioners, in striving for the great work, always failed precisely because of their own humanity. Their ambition, their fear, their hope, all these human traits made true perfection impossible. Each step toward mastery only revealed deeper flaws, darker truths, and more profound despair. Yet they continued, driven by visions, dreams, and prophecies, forever chasing the echoes of a work that remained forever incomplete, forever unattainable. And so alchemy became a mirror to humanity's eternal struggle, the quest for perfection in an imperfect world, the yearning for understanding amid chaos, the desperate hope for salvation in the face of relentless destruction. The The great work was not a goal to be achieved, but a reflection of humanity's most profound truth, that to seek perfection was itself a beautiful, tragic folly, an act of defiance against an indifferent universe. Yet, perhaps that was alchemy's true lesson, that in their relentless pursuit of the great work, humanity found not perfection, but resilience. In their failures, they discovered meaning. In their suffering, they found purpose. Even as their creations turned monstrous, as their minds fractured, as their bodies broke, they persisted. They refused to yield, forever chasing a dream they knew might never be realized, driven not by the promise of transcendence, but by the unyielding human desire to strive, to create, to hope against all reason. In this endless pursuit lay alchemy's greatest revelation, that the great work was never truly about mastery over matter or life, but about the indomitable spirit of humanity itself, a spirit that could be twisted, broken, and scarred, yet would forever rise, driven by echoes of a work never complete, but forever sought. In the end, alchemy's greatest revelation was neither salvation nor damnation, neither the creation of life nor its destruction. Instead, it stood revealed as something far more profound and inescapable, a force of fate, an inevitability that bound humanity forever to a cycle of unending struggle and tragic beauty. Alchemy was not merely an art or science, it was destiny itself, woven into the very fabric of existence, a cosmic truth forever echoing through the trenches, whispering in the minds of philosophers and madmen alike. It shaped humanity not by offering escape from suffering, but by transforming that suffering into something eternal, something meaningful, something deeply, painfully human. In the trenches, amid the cries of the dying and the silence of the fallen, alchemy revealed its most harrowing truth, that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its power to create or destroy, but in its capacity to endure. Each soldier who inhaled the burning incense of holy smoke, each heretic who embraced the agony of infernal steel, each alchemist who sacrificed sanity for glimpses of divine or cosmic revelation, all were bound together by the unbreakable threads of fate. Their choices, however desperate or noble, led always to the same place: the realization that their struggle was eternal, their pain inevitable, their hope both futile and essential. In embracing alchemy, they embraced their own humanity, with all its contradictions, its fragility, and its profound, relentless resilience. To practice alchemy was to acknowledge the inescapable truth that creation itself was flawed, imperfect, beautiful, and broken. Every act of transmutation was a reflection of the human soul, aspiring toward perfection, yet forever falling short, dreaming of salvation, yet forever bound by suffering. The trenches, scarred and burned by centuries of unending conflict, became the ultimate testament to this truth. They were not merely battlefields, but crucibles in which humanity was continuously forged and reforged, each generation transformed by alchemy's relentless cycle, bearing the scars of their predecessors, passing on the burden of existence to those who followed. Yet within this tragic inevitability lay a strange kind of hope. Alchemy, for all its cruelty and beauty, offered humanity a glimpse of its true nature, the relentless will to persist, to create meaning from madness, to find purpose in the most profound despair. In each failed experiment, each tortured homunculus, each sanctified blade and cursed bullet, humanity confronted its own limitations and its own boundless potential. They knew that the great work would never be complete, that perfection was forever out of reach, yet they persisted. They chose to believe, despite all evidence, that their struggle mattered, that their pain was not meaningless, that each act of creation, however flawed, was a defiance against oblivion. Thus, alchemy became more than an art, more than science or sorcery. It became a philosophy of existence itself. It taught humanity not how to escape suffering, but how to bear it. It revealed that their true strength lay not in miracles or mastery over matter, but in their unyielding capacity to endure, to find hope amid ruin, to seek beauty in brokenness. Each transmutation was a testament not to alchemy's power, but to humanity's indomitable spirit, a spirit capable of facing the abyss, of staring into the void, and of continuing to create, to dream, to hope, even when all seemed lost. Alchemy's ultimate irony was that its practitioners, in striving for godhood, discovered instead their own profound humanity. They learned that the great work was not about transcending human limitations, but about embracing them, accepting that their imperfections were not flaws, but the very essence of their strength. Each scar, each failure, each act of desperation was a testament to their resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest trenches, amid the deepest despair, humanity's spirit burned brightest. In the end, alchemy was not a path to divinity, nor a descent into damnation, but a mirror held up to the human soul, a soul forever struggling, forever dreaming, forever bound by fate, yet forever defying it. It was a cycle of endless transmutation, each generation forging its own destiny from the ruins left by those who came before, knowing full well that they too would leave ruins for those who followed. It was tragic and beautiful, futile and meaningful, a never-ending story of humanity's eternal battle with itself. And perhaps that was alchemy's final, greatest revelation, that the human spirit, in all its frailty and strength, in all its madness and wisdom, was itself the ultimate great work. Imperfect, flawed, forever seeking, yet never fully achieving, yet profoundly, heartbreakingly, undeniably beautiful in its persistence, in its endless capacity for hope, in its relentless defiance of fate. Thus, alchemy became not just a reflection of humanity's struggle, but the embodiment of its eternal truth, that to be human was to be forever bound by fate, yet forever driven to forge meaning from that very bondage. It was not perfection they sought, nor even salvation, but the strength to endure, to create, to hope, even when all else was lost. This was alchemy's true legacy, an unending testament to humanity's indomitable will, forever transformed yet forever unbroken, bound by fate yet forever defying it, transmuted not into gold or godhood, but into something far more precious, far more profound, the eternal, unyielding, fragile, yet unbreakable human spirit.